Well, everybody, good afternoon. It's really good to be here with all of you, and I just shout out to Bloomberg, Tim, you and the team for bringing all of us together here on something that is so important that, especially for this audience, is very near and dear to our heart. You know, it feels like the word unprecedented is almost has no meaning anymore because you have to almost use that every week nowadays. If just looking at how cyber threats have changed, how we see nation states getting involved in business. When I take a step back, just very briefly at the macro level, I want to share a little bit of what we see, talk a little bit about how we think we should all approach this, and then we can jump straight into the content. But at the macro level, there are three big things that we are looking at. First of all, I come from a fraud background, just for a little bit of context. I used to be a police officer many years ago. I ran fraud shops for banks, chased bad guys all over the place. I think I eventually got tired and said technology must be able to help us to catch them or prevent them from doing things. But I remember days when we were talking about the evolution of fraud. Now we talk more about the evolution of technology than we talk about the evolution of the bad folks almost. There's just the number of generational changing new technology deployments and the speed at which they come at us has just increased at an unprecedented level, to use that word again. So we see that change. You know, we've seen the iPhone come, we've seen AI just dawn on us all of a sudden. Quantum is on our doorstep as the next one, even faster. So this is not going to slow down at all. So you've got this massive evolution of technology. At the same time, you feel like we as a global entities should be working closer together. Yet it feels like we are being fragmented and there's more sovereignty than ever before. So while we should be collaborating more and while we're digitally connected more than ever before, it feels like from a geopolitical point of view, we're actually moving further and further, and this isolation approach is not helping the people who are trying to defend companies, entities, countries, when we need to be sharing intelligence and sharing data. So that's the second point. The third one is, I would say, the industrialization of cybercrime. Cybercrime has now become a fully fledged industry. I mean, we talk about $15.6 trillion potentially. And I have to stand here and tell you, I'm not sure how they got that number, but it's a big number. And even if we're slightly south of that, it still is a number that should concern all of us and probably do concern all of us. So if you think about how access to data, access to technology has been weaponized by cybercriminals. On the dark web, I can buy information, I can buy technology, I can buy packages, I can buy services. I can buy ransomware as a service, I can buy money laundering as a service, you name it. So everything is there. And that has fueled this, I would say, almost gray zone where fraud, cybercrime, financial crimes, money laundering has all kind of meshed together. So our worlds have become really interconnected in terms of how we together as industries, and especially as the financial industry, are looking at things. So these are some of the big trends that we're seeing. Now, it's not all bad. I think, you know, we are making good progress. We see more and more people coming together. We see events like this where people are willing to talk. We see AI now really becoming an ingredient of automating the defender's approach to defend ourselves against AI attacks. I think we've all now seen that the automation of attacks against us is fully there. We've talked about the potential of a fully automated attack. Now we've seen it actually happening. Nation states are involved in that as well. So, but now I think the good thing is we've got the same technology on the defender side. I'm an optimist. I do believe we can do this. I do believe if we have the right technology, if we have the right investment, if we have the right threat intelligence. You know, Mastercard invested in a company called Recorded Future. We feel that is so important for us to know what the adversaries are doing so that we can plan and we can create our own strategies. So that piece for me is really, really important. So I'm going to leave you just with three things that we believe are important for us. Partnerships. Partnerships at events like this. Private-public partnerships are absolutely critical. Private-to-private partnerships. In fact, I think we're at a place that, given the geopolitical blocks that are forming around the world, as private entities, I think we almost have an obligation more so than ever before to really make sure that we connect the dots between each other, that intelligence and threats and things are flowing between us. And of course, we're going to work very, very closely with governments. There's no way on earth we can do this apart from them. So private-public, private-private, these partnerships are absolutely critically important for us. Platforms. The need for us to build bigger platforms, the need for us to embed security into the thinking, into the design of what we do. I think that's something that we want to put on every technology company across the world, every government around the world, when we build platforms, it has to come with with all of that embedded in it from the get-go. That for me is absolutely essential for us to do bigger platforms where this is all embedded. And then the last one is just principles. You know, how do we make sure that we get the basics right? How do we make sure that we adhere to those principles that will make us a safer society, that allows our systems to talk to one another, even if we are spread across the world in many different places, to allow the free flow of information so that we as defenders can actually help each other fight a better fight. And I think if we do this right, if we do the right investments, if we focus on the right partnerships and these big platforms that we are building, I think we can truly make a difference in the lives out there. I always have the concern around who's looking at our consumer. That for me is something that's very important. Who's looking at the small business? At Mastercard, we have a keen interest in our small businesses. It makes up globally almost 50% of GDP is being derived from on the back of small businesses. More than 70% of all employment happens through the small business sector. So I'm almost at the place where we should all collectively start thinking of small businesses as potential critical infrastructure, because they're that important to our economies. And I'll leave you with a very last thing. If there's one thing that the Land Rover Jaguar breach taught me, if there's one thing that the Land Rover Jaguar breach taught me, is that I think every cyber event should be now thought of as an economic event. If you really think what happened there, the impact, of course, was on the main company, but the blast radius was an entire supply chain of small companies, small businesses in the environments where all the plants were located, where these people were working. I heard that there was something like almost 20,000 businesses impacted through that. That has a massive economic impact on us. One of the things we did at Mastercard is with the Colonial Pipeline, we actually tracked consumer spending data, what happened when that breach was revealed. And it was fascinating to see how consumers were doing panic buying. People were literally emptying up the shelves all along the East Coast of that. So these things are now, you can't disconnect them anymore. So I'll close with this. Very keen to see what's going to happen today in our conversations here. Very keen on the content. We've got a very strong agenda, lots of good speakers here. But let's all go with this mindset of principles in mind. We're no longer operating within a silo. We're operating in a very interconnected global world where we truly have an economic impact in the work that we do. And therefore, things like this are so important for us. And with that, I'm gonna kick off and get the first set of speakers on board. But really looking forward to a great agenda today. Thank you so much for having us today.